George Kilpatrick Inspiration for the Nation. We continue our series on Kwanzaa with the 6th day of Kwanzaa, Kuumba, which means creativity. Officially, to do always as much as we can in the way that we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. Talina Jones joins us now to talk about Kuumba and how that is showing up in her life. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. So talk to me about Kuumba.
So Kuumba is when you told me that I was going to be on talking about it, I was really excited because this is the first year where there are a number of reasons why I'm celebrating Kwanzaa. So always have, but Kuumba means creativity, right? And I think in the spirit of like Blackness, right? It is us being creative over time and not having things that we have continued to create.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I didn't always consider myself a creative. I was always like kind of the nerdy kid. So I was like, oh, the artsy people are so interesting and dope. And I wish I was like that. But what you find is that when you don't have, making something out of nothing is literally our legacy in this country.
Sure.
Like in the definition of Blackness, right? And so it actually speaks to the essence of who we are. So we often talk about excellence, but I love Kuumba because talking about creativity gets to our spirits around how we've been able to essentially survive and thrive.
Right.
Because the stuff that comes out of our brain, right? Because we had to do it with very little, right? And then legacies are passed on and you have more and so forth and so on. So you continue to create, you continue to be creative, but you get to do it at different scales and different levels. But this year we're kind of back to 101.
Yeah.
Just some paints, some wood, but it speaks to the essence of Blackness. And I think that it's important for us to think about that in that way.
Yeah. What did you discover about yourself this year relating to Kuumba? Or is it all what you just said, like reminding us of what this year? How did that alter your feeling? This nerd, you said the nerd kids and you're the creative and you never saw yourself as that. So what changed for you in some ways this year?
Oh my gosh. I mean, being home.
Yeah. Right.
The slowdown of the pandemic, having, right, like not finding the Zoom link immediately because we was on all of the Zoom calls for high school because I'm taking high school all over again, helping my child with an intellectual disability get through this pandemic in school, which means I'm his one-to-one.
Right.
Means that I'm also home. Right. And so what does that look like? That looks like for many people, changes in income.
Yep.
All of that good stuff. And so when you go out for Christmas right now, I mean, even when it was like consumption, right, of toilet paper and let's hoard food and all of that, deciding not to do that.
Right.
Really was a moment. And then not being able to afford to do it, even if you wanted to. But during the Christmas season, because I celebrate Christmas, the rest of my family celebrates Christmas, but we also celebrate Kwanzaa. But all of us this year, right, just kind of said, I love you and I'd rather make something for you. So then go out and buy it. So it's not only the fact that I can't afford it, but I got a little bit more time. So I could go paint me something and give it to you. So it sounds trivial when you say it, right? But it actually means that I got to know that my grandmama's favorite color is yellow.
Right.
So what I produce will have that on it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, yes. So then when you think about Kuumba and the creativity for 2021, how will this show up in your life uh as a guide for your daily living in 2021? Like how do you see Kuumba showing up for you?
And I think it's important for us to continue to think about ourselves beyond ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in 2021, Kuumba is going to be that much more important because we're going to have to figure out what life looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, again, the essential element. Oh, this is my child. Hello, child.
Hello.
Yeah, sit down. Sit. I think you look nice. Okay. The boots look nice too. Sit down. Okay. Um, I think we're gonna have to continue to think about what is it going to look like in order to create a different world.
Right.
And I think that means leadership ultimately for us, because in being visionaries and envisioning life in a different way means that we're going to have to be creative. We're going to have the creativity that is essential to Black people, which is why it is one of the principles, which is why it's one of the elements. You know,
Yeah.
like you can't have it without us.
What?
It's like Octavia Butler
Mm.
writing us into the future, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Say more
At
about
that
that.
moment, she had to be creative,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but she saw us. Creatives are not just people. It is an element. It is a principle. It is something that we stand on. It is something that we've always had to be. And so 2021, even though it's going to be like tomorrow, because I just looked at the date, because you can't never find a date. I don't know about the rest of your listeners, but we know that when you look at it, we look up every morning and we're like, what's today? It's
Right,
Monday.
because it's so right. I know, right.
Like, what day is it? It's Christmas? Where? How? What? Like, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
But I think for futuristic thinking is something that was never lost upon us.
Mm-hmm.
But Kuumba inspires us to continue to be creative in a way that says not only are we in the future, but we design the future.
Mm.
And we need to have that thought process that is valued, that is not just a money making, reading, writing, arithmetic, the 3 R's, even though arithmetic got an A, I love our people.
Right.
They call it the 3 R's and then still say, that what?
Right,
What,
right.
what was wrong? Nobody said we was wrong. That's creation, right? Like, the beauty of it is to see the future and where we're going to be for 2021 and furthermore in this country and beyond.
And write it ourselves. Talina Jones, thank you for keeping it like in perspective, right? Like back to basics. I love that. And I've seen so many people do so many creative things. Like I was saying to my wife, even in the midst of all of this, she's in canned. The garden was the best ever.
Right.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Like who's canning? We canning in 2020.
Canning, like,
okay.
I told her, I said, and we'll have tomatoes to March, because she did that until I said, my goal is to have these tomatoes that you planted, like until when we start to plant again next season, right? So anyway, thank you, Talina, Inspiration for the Nation, Kuumba Creativity. I love it. Let's create, let's design our future and write ourselves in it. Inspiration.
Octavia Butler was the one, baby. Everybody always talks about George Orwell, and I always want to name her because I just think it's always super important to name some of our Black women who definitely have been visionaries and saw all of our liberation and saw all of us
Talk to me.
into the future.
Inspiration for the Nation.